We had the Charlie Kirk bouncy Cambridge student debate. There is
We're honored
the feminist one. I'm gonna skip the bouncy student one. We already watched that, but I want to hear like Charlie Kirk debate with the other Cambridge student.
So I'm a feminist.
Boo.
My question is about the role of women, though. What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
Well, thank you for that. Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes. An
What is a
adult
woman?
human female, it's a biological state of being that is also socially experienced. Can I please elucidate just one example of that social experience?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you're a member of a tribe.
Why did you boo her? Because she says she's a feminist. Duh. I'm apolitical, and apolitical means you have to hate. You have to hate feminism. That's like, because feminism is politics, and on women is not politics. It's just like the highest state of being apolitical.
And that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
So can a woman have a prostate?
Can a woman have a prostate? Biologically speaking, a woman is an adult human female that has a biological reality, but it's also social experience, right? So I don't.
Yeah, it's super easy. Like, can a woman have a prostate?
So,
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. Because as she also correctly pointed to, it is also socially experienced. It's like, dude, people love the people love, Republicans especially, love playing this goddamn song and dance where they'll be like, race is a social construct. Okay, I'm black now. It's like, you can have biological markers of race, but the interactions and the analysis of like what constitutes someone as a black person is still social. Okay? Or what constitutes someone as a white person is still social. You can still socially experience these things. Okay? For example, I say I'm white all the time. Go ask an Islamophobic person if I'm white, and you will very quickly realize that maybe I'm not so white because my name is Hassan and I'm Muslim and I'm from Turkey. Like, that's it. That is the perfect representation, because when you look at my skin color, or when you look at me from afar, especially if I'm like shaven and you don't know that my name is Hassan, you're not going to think that I'm anything but white, especially in the United States of America. Whereas if I was in Germany, for example, a country with a ton of Turkish migrants living in it, okay, then I'm automatically disqualified from being a part of the German in-group, because they have a better understanding of like what a Turkish person looks like. So they would very quickly clock me as a Turkish person and therefore not officially German. Okay? That's it. So yes, something can have biological markers while also simultaneously have a social performance associated with it, regardless of said biological markers, regardless of said biological preconditions. This is precisely the reason why when you see a trans woman, like let's say Hunter Schafer, even if you know that they are a trans woman and you want to be transphobic, in an effort to, if you were to point to Hunter Schafer and say, that man over there is sitting next to my bag, no one would understand who the you're talking about. They would say, what do you mean? What are you saying? Like, you would not be able to communicate with other people, because gender is a social performance at the end of the day. And this is before we even talk about sex and intersex people, and the fact that even a prostate or other kind of like biological markers that Charlie Kirk would present as like being the end all be all of womanhood also kind of fall apart, because even sex itself is not a binary. So much so that even Ben Shapiro nowadays says it's bimodal, which is at least closer to the truth.
So as per my definition of woman, I would say that people who have a prostate are biologically male, but they can sometimes be socially treated as women.
Okay, got it. So women can have prostates. Got it. Okay.
By the way, I feel like this is the most pro-trans argument you're ever gonna get in the UK, because even that in and of itself is like, it's how is it not binary for curiosity? Because intersex people exist. Like it's not a 1-0. You're either a man or a woman. Even when it comes to biological sex, okay? When you talk about biology, when you talk about the biological version of sex, male versus female, even then there is a tremendous number of people that are intersex. Binary implies that there is just either one bracket or the other and nothing else and nothing in between. When in fact, no biologist would agree with that. As a matter of fact, the very bracketing of intersex people at birth without consent into whichever gender that they fit better, that determination being made by a professional, by a medical professional, is in and of itself another example that like gender itself is social. If that was the case, if that wasn't the case, then there would be no need for this, right? There would be no need to like make an intersex person fit a certain gender stereotype.
Okay. So you're a feminist.
Yeah, gender is not binary, and neither is sex.
That actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
So, yes, men also experience harms from patriarchy, but I argue...
We're talking about the same feminism, though, just make sure. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So, men also experience harm from patriarchal domination, but I would argue that those harms come from that system of domination itself. In the same way, for example, this isn't a threat, but if I reached across and punched you in the face, then my hand might hurt. Right? So, are we understanding that there are, patterns of power? So, I would also fight for the rights of men.
Wow, that was actually a pretty good analogy to describe how men are harmed by patriarchy. Okay... Respect to this person. Biological sex is a bimodal distribution. Biological sex is a bimodal distribution. Haas news. Haas breaking news. That's the dumbest thing you've ever said. Oh man, I forgot. There are always a lot of chatters whenever the trans subject comes up. There's always a new crop of chatters who love what I have to say about like Israel, Palestine, for example. But then this is the one issue where they're like, what the do you mean? To those chatters, I say, why the do you care? What's it to you? What's it to you? Also, it is crazy when it is crazy when people lose their minds over such a tiny marginal population group, as though they are like responsible for the decay of Western civilization or whatever the people present it as.
And as a feminist, just as I would fight for the rights of women.
Sure. You think women are happier than they were 40 years ago?
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction.
Dude, no one is happier than they were 40 years ago. What the does that mean? Yeah, I wonder if there is an ever-present domineering mode of existence that perhaps ruins people's hope for a better future. I don't know. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Action today, because not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labor in homes that is structured around outdated expectations. So, for example, studies like the OECD's Better Life Index show that women's life expectancy, education levels, professional achievements have risen.
As a Muslim, it is in the Quran. What is? What the trans people are in the Quran? I don't understand. What? I don't care, dude. Listen, clearly you are anti-Israel, okay? To me, being like sources cited, the Quran is no different than when like Israel dick riders would be like, Israel's been around for 3,000 years. My source, the Bible, okay? Get the out of here. I don't care. All right, sick, man. Cool.
In countries with higher gender inequality. So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
Yeah. That's really rich. I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. That's funny. So,
We've always been
no, hold on a second. Why are suicide rates going up more for women?
Don't make our children gay. You disrespecting the Quran? No. I'm disrespecting the application of the Quran when we're talking about modern social constructs. Okay? The notion that the Quran would be any sort of important marker in the way that like modern people exist in modern society is ridiculous, just as the Bible would be ridiculous or the Torah would be ridiculous. That's it. Also, I'm pretty sure Islam is, at least some versions of Islam are a little bit more understanding. They're definitely homophobic, but a little bit more understanding of the notion of trans existence.
I think that
Forget complaining. Materially, women are killing themselves more. Why is that?
I think that even if both men and women have become unhappier, men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been exponential. Can you at least concede that feminism offers only one potential explanation? There could be also other explanations.
Of course, obviously, but feminism is the glaring thing in front of us where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappiness up, and we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Brady Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said, you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control. And all of a sudden, women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago. And I just have to ask the question, why is that? Is it working? And maybe there are biological differences between men and women.
Yeah, women would be way happier if they were servile inside of the home. It's just, they would be way happier. They would be way happier as opposed to, being a cog in the capitalist machine. Charlie loves capitalism. He defends capitalism unconditionally. He will never assume that that is the real problem here for all people, women or men.
Women that we should respect, and that deep down a lot of women want to get married and have children. In fact, we should applaud it and we should support it. And
also, ain't nobody is saying women shouldn't stay at home if they choose to do so. You're not arguing about that either. You want women to have no options. You're angry at the fact that women have the option. That's it. And because you're anti-woman, you're suggesting that women are stupid and should not even be presented with this option, because if even given the option, they'll choose the dumb option as opposed to the much better option of staying at home. This is about relegating women back to a servile state. That's all this is. And it's unfortunately a very, very popular way of communicating, especially to the youth, because there's a lot of interpersonal resentment towards women amongst young men for a multitude of different reasons. Dating life and things of that nature play a big role in this. And a lot of these opportunists actually capture the attention of these malleable children and redirect their anger. And instead of, making them engage in self-criticism and engage in self-improvement, they cause them to become whiny little crybabies that think like, oh, well, women don't want to be with me, so it's a societal issue, and that they should know their place in society and they should have to be with me at all times if I choose that. And then there's obviously the older person version of this, which Jordan Peterson demonstrates. But, why don't I ever hear you telling the girls to get off Instagram? What do you mean? Oh, Kaya, place. You guys leaving? Bye, Fifi.
We should say
Fifi.
it means nothing if you're going to go be a CEO of some shoe company or be some banker in London. What matters if you raise children and you have something to pass down long after you're gone.
I think I would bring 2 points to that. The first one is just really simple, which is that you can ascribe liberalism all you want as the cause of the unhappiness. I would argue something else. I would say that it's certain economic policy that has very little to do with the social acceptance of alternative lifestyles. I would say that we can recognize that income inequality across a vast swathe of Western countries has increased, which causes all kinds of social ills, a lack of social cohesion, housing price growth doesn't correspond with wage growth, monopolies increasingly become kind of emboldened to interfere with politics, and monopolies don't prioritize social health either. I think that those offer more compelling reasons for a decline in happiness than an increase in freedoms, because just one more thing, on an intuitive basis, generally speaking, people want more freedom, not less.
Okay, so if that's true, why is it? Do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but I think there are certain.
Yeah. If this is even true, which I don't know if it is, okay? But even if it was true, the explanation for it is very simple. Yes, they don't have to work, or at least their only work is inside of the household where they have a degree of autonomy, as opposed to in the normal workplace where they don't. And it's usually from financially stable households that allow a single income, single earner household to even exist. But that is if we actually assume that this is true. And I have no reason to believe that this is true, for the record.
Right.
There are certain
and objectively, we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones
What?
that.
Okay, then he just like jumps off to a totally irrelevant point that he just made up. You're not bringing any data. You're just simply relying on the audience to go, I agree with that. The women that tear down statues do seem angry. What the That's not a point. That has nothing to do with anything.
That actually have obligations.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's like...
That's a really good way to deal with that. God damn. The problem here is the more she dominates Charlie, the more Charlie is reaffirmed in his previous position that women should never be allowed a microphone. That's the issue. That's the issue in this conversation is the more she cooks his ass, which she did right here, the more Charlie goes, and this is exactly why you have to stay in the kitchen, because you hurt my feelings when you're outside of the kitchen. There is no microphones in the kitchen. I remember her saying she's a leftist from her convo with you. Yeah, I think so. But she was also like following a bunch of random accounts that obviously it was like weird. I don't know. She seemed nice though. She seemed cool. I think she was just only like she was a little anti-sex worker, but not even all that much. Do you concede that women with enough privilege and wealth to not need to work are much happier than the other women who have capitalism's boot on their neck? Exactly. That's the question that Charlie asked.
It's a little bit of a one-liner.
The greatest way to destroy Charlie Kirk's argument here is basically to say, don't you feel like the systematic enforcement of capitalism and the incentive structure created within capitalism is making it infinitely harder to have children and two parents with one party working in a household, which she did actually kind of bring that up.
The happy and the grateful.
Wait, she cooked them.
We know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's like
that.
It's a little bit of a one-liner. The happy and the grateful. The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we saw in our country all throughout a single summer. But as a side note, you would agree, objectively, study after study, survey after survey, that the women of the West that are married and have children, especially a lot of children, are far happier than even the ones that earn more money correlated at the same age.
So I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making. So I don't think smiles per capita is a particularly convincing way to measure whether or not we should encourage women to be autonomous. I think we should maximize agency within a fair system that has reasonable parameters because it's expedient, it's good for the economy, it's logical, it's the moral thing, because if we can't...
Single moms, less housework, more leisure than married moms. Without a spouse in the house, single moms do fewer chores and get more sleep. I don't know. Didn't you sit in that chair? I did.
Prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also, self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable. But so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going to measure...
You would say extremely miserable?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean, but seriously, like...
Yeah, she's saying she would say she's extremely miserable because she has to talk to you. Oh, God. This is the other debate technique that I also despise, which is very I mean, this is like a practical application of it. You're seeing it in real time, which is my interlocutor has no capacity to be humorous or engage in like hyperbolic statements or in an effort to like entertain, say something funny. I am going to present it as though she is being utterly sincere. I have no reason to believe that this person is. I have no reason to believe that this person was trying to make a joke. Yeah, it's just like this weaponization of playing dumb. This weaponization of just making every statement come across as though it's perfectly sincere. Now, obviously, a lot of the debate pervert communities that come after me also deploy this technique with regular frequency to clips of mine, where they'll be like, I'll say something like very clearly a joke, like offhandedly. Like I'm reminded of that Discord, the Discord messages where I was like responding to a chatter, being like, I'm gonna kill myself, and then people were like, oh, he wants to commit suicide. Hassan is actually suicidal. It's like the most commonplace thing that people say online. Very clearly, I'm not being sincere. I'm not suicidal in any capacity. Why the f would you ever take that seriously? They're just autistic. They don't get sarcasm. No, that's not true. This is barely a debate. He's just tossing non sequiturs and ignoring everything of substance you're saying. To be fair, she hasn't stopped talking. Yeah, but she's cooking.
But hold on. I mean, like, that's an important point, though, is that the women in the West have it the best in the world, and yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something fundamentally wrong here.
No offense, man, but you got pretty defensive about a joke played on you earlier today. You didn't get the joke at first. You got angry, then you got the joke. Yeah, because I'm dealing with a lot of insincere charlatans in the chat with regular frequency. And my coverage was talking about a famous Palestinian journalist that was assassinated. And obviously within that context, especially considering that it's not like a face-to-face communication situation, but instead an anonymous account that had come in, and I have no way of seeing if they are sincere or simply joking, am going to, in real time, initially assume that that person is attacking me as opposed to making a joke about a slain Palestinian journalist and their last name. I feel like contextually there are inappropriate moments where people will act as though they are not capable of understanding that their interlocutor is engaging in a joke. This, on the other hand, what you're describing is like a disagreement. I mean, a misunderstanding, which I, as you also admitted, recognized.
Because the women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs. And the women of sub-Saharan Africa, they have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological undercurrent that is keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without...
Again, this argument in and of itself only works if you believe women are too stupid to know what's best for them. This argument is an Ouroboros, okay? It is it only works if your starting position already is that women are somehow lesser and don't know what's good for them. And you only believe that if you are misogynistic. Because the argument is, if presented with the option of financial freedom versus like staying at home and being a mom, women end up choosing financial freedom, and that makes them sad as opposed to staying at home and being a mom. And therefore, women are very clearly, due to the economic liberty presented to them, making the wrong options because they're too stupid to choose the right option. This also obviously completely avoids any sort of real structural analysis of why women are choosing to work as opposed to choosing to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom and a wife. The problem there is obviously capitalism.
Reading your phone and just, like, connecting.
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure, then you can answer without it. Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
No, again, so I fully, if you want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like I'm all.
This has nothing to do with Islam, you dumb. This is like literally a regionally specific genital mutilation practice that it literally has nothing to do with Islam. The notion that this is like a practice in Islam is so stupid. Ugh. Does not. God, this is literally like post 9/11 Islamophobia. This is post 9/11 Islamophobia. Ah, the barbaric Muslims they're doing genital mutilation.
All for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually
we
have
agree on
agreement.
many things.
That we should shut off Muslim immigration to the UK, right? We totally agree.
I think that all religious fundamentalism is bad, and if you take that logic, we should also not allow evangelical Christians into
Well,
the
okay,
UK either.
hold on. So hold on a second.
Ooh, that was good. I think that's still stupid, but the whole like, don't even give him an ounce of like, Muslim fundamentalism has nothing to do with female genital mutilation. But having said that, her retort was good, where it's like, yeah, if we're gonna shut off immigration into the country based on religious fundamentalist values, then evangelical Christianity should also be shut off.
That's funny. Hold on. Can you show me a single? Show me what would your example? Because I have 50 of a single Christian country that you would say mistreats women, right?
America.
Dog, your argument is to literally do what you think Sharia is, okay? What you think Sharia is a fundamentalist approach to the gender dynamic. You only attribute that to Islam because you're stupid, but like you want Christian Sharia in the goddamn country. That's what you're advocating for right now. You are literally advocating for that, sitting on that side of the podium. What do you mean? This is why I always say conservatives hate the conservatism of other countries. Okay? Conservatives love to talk about how barbaric and backwards conservatives in other countries are, while literally demanding that we do the same shit in America, but within the confines of their in-group. You are a Trump supporter. JD, you love JD Vance. JD Vance thinks women are broodmares that are only good for breeding. He is a pronatalist. He's like a psycho. Stupid. What a stupid argument. Name one Christian country that mistreats women. Yeah, if left to your own devices, America would resemble a Taliban rulership of Afghanistan, but just in an American version. As a matter of fact, you're moving American society in that direction right now. You just only hate it when it's like fundamentalism coming from brown people. That's the problem.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We had a female woman vice president.
Dude, excuse me. A woman was vice president, and I hate her because she's a whore. Charlie's like, we had a whore. We had a whore vice president who had inferior IQ, a female woman whore. How dare you say that I mistreat women? What's next? You're going to tell me America's racist? Oh, that's so funny. Oh, that's amazing. I love that. He's like, he has never stopped on Kamala Harris on the basis of being black, on the basis of being a woman, saying she's unqualified for both of those, saying she's unqualified because of those reasons, only to turn around and be like, oh, we had a woman vice president. Okay. Plenty of Muslim countries have had heads of state that were women. Yeah, Iran had Iran had a Department of Environment, leader of the Department of Environment. She served as vice president for Women and Family Affairs. And what was I going to say? Oh, Turkey had a head of state. Pakistan had a head of state that was a woman. Turkey had a head of state that was a woman. Multiple decades before America even had like Hillary Clinton run for president. Yeah, Tansu Çiller and Benazir Bhutto. Yeah. What's up?
We had a female vice president, a female speaker of the House. Women earn more than men in America.
In Rwanda, female representation in government supersedes the UK by quite a lot. Did women get treated better in Rwanda?
What? I had respect for this man when he was fighting LGBTQ, but when he started to defend Israel, I've hated him so much. You cannot be serious. There is no way that you are a foremost subscriber and you only like me because of my pro-Palestinian positions, not realizing that I'm also firmly committed to defending, queer liberation, gay people, trans people. There are definitely enough markers in the chat for you to comprehend that you're on the wrong side of that position if you think that that's not Ayatollah spotted. Yeah. What the yeah. Be nice to everybody except for gay people and trans people. Those guys. They're ruining society. I think he's saying he's homophobic, but drew the line at Zionism. Yeah, it's interesting because the very same principles that caused me to defend Palestinian emancipation are the exact same principles as to why I think attacking gay people and trans people for whatever they choose to do with their own bodies and however they choose to express themselves and however they choose to be happy is identical. It's empathy at the root of it all.
Okay, I might be super off this. Like, is Rwanda Islamic? Like, I'm not totally sure. I don't think it is. Like, is it? Like, I don't know, actually. It's not. So, again, we were just talking about Islam. It's a little bit of a side note, but you must be morally clear because you brought up female genital mutilation, which is
Islamic.
A teaching of the Islamic faith. But as
no, it's not. It's not. It's not. You moron. It's not. What the are you talking about? God damn, it's just so basic. It's just basic shit. This is like addressed by Reza Aslan in like 2004, okay? What the No, it is not an Islamic teaching nor an Islamic practice at all. What the He's talking about circumcision, right? No, he's not. He's talking about female genital mutilation. Unless he's talking about circumcision. But I'm pretty sure Charlie's circed up too.
Side note, like, again, this is very important, which is I'm not here to require you to do anything or not. I'm making a simple observation, which is objectively true regardless. The women of the West are miserable, and they're miserable.
What? I don't care what they do in bed, bro, but bringing this shit on in public with kids outside is a Zionism problem, to be fair. No, it's not. Let people exist, chatter. What the No. What do you mean? If you're gay, I don't want to see you holding hands with another man. By the way, I assume this dude is Muslim, okay? This is not me being bigoted, but the joke I'm going to make here is that you and your homies do infinitely gayer shit in public. You have no business talking about what people are doing in public, okay? I know what you do in between playing backgammon and smoking shisha, all right? You're kissing the homies. You're kissing the homies left and right, okay? Don't even come in here with this nonsense, acting like, oh, don't do that in public, bro. Don't do that in public, bro. Only I get to do that with the homies, bro. But we're not gay, bro, so it's fine. It's fine, bro. Okay? Grabbing each other's dicks and shit. And then acting like, it's just none of that gay stuff in public, bro.
For a reason, because we've told them to suppress how they are made by God and pursue something else and get a bunch of trinkets and get a bunch of promotions, and they end up at 38 years old with a big flat in London, and they're miserable. And we should tell them to stop freezing their eggs and start finding their partner earlier and have lots of babies.
Yeah.
You can't be talking. You are Turkish, the most gay people in Europe and the Middle East combined. Dog, why do you think I'm speaking from personal experience? Yes, I know. That's the point that I was making. Exactly. Yeah, no shit. Thanks for understanding the point I was making. Not only that, but historically, homosexuality was an incredibly common practice in the golden age of Islam and far into even like the Ottoman Tanzimat era where it was decriminalized. It was never really criminalized to begin with. The notion that like Islam historically has been homophobic is really stupid. It was literally more pro-gay than Christianity for its entire existence. Islam has been broadly homophobic for a shorter period of time than it has been pro-gay. Okay? Straight up. Also, have you met a Lebanese person? Is another question I'm going to ask, which is, it's much like the Turks. Have you met a Lebanese person? Lebanese people are the most homonormative society, okay? Lebanese people are the most homonormative society. They unironically get groomed into being straight. They have to be groomed into being straight. No, this has nothing to do with Austin. Austin would be hate crimed in Lebanon for being straight, okay? The way he carries himself. I'm talking about real Lebanese, all right?
Okay, I think I'd bring two just final points to this. First one is just really intuitive.
Tanzimat era views on homosexuality is not equal to Golden Age of Islam's view on that subject. No, I'm just saying that Muslims broadly had a very agnostic opinion on homosexuality until recently. It is a contemporary fundamentalist approach within Islamic scripture, but also within some Muslim nations that are run by fundamentalist parties in perpetuity that have this anti-gay approach.
Right, which is that if you actually care about women's happiness, then the solution is to structurally support them. That means universal childcare, shared legally enforceable parental leave, and in Nordic countries where women have high workforce participation and also some state support, they report higher life satisfaction than in more conservative countries, including America. So if your metric is happiness,
just use satisfaction surveys. You just told me they're BS.
So our satisfaction surveys are not, because you told me they're bullshit.
Do you acknowledge satisfaction surveys or not? You just told me that they're BS. Do you think they're we can use that as data?
I don't think that
yes or no?
It is the only sole data set, but it is a data set that necessarily
you told me they're so flawed and you self-report. Okay, by the macro self-satisfaction data, I am correct. And you are right. When you have paid family leave, you are happier. I'm actually a proponent of that. At Turning Point USA, we pay for 6 months when somebody has a child. I think there's a lot of agreement we can have on that. We need to encourage having more children. I think the Hungarian child policy is phenomenal. We should look at that, because the greatest thing that is plaguing the West is we're not having enough kids. And it's not just bad because we won't have a future. It's also bad because the present is awfully miserable for too many women as well.
Okay, in which case I think we get...
Do I start bringing this to a close, please?
Okay, I think just one final thing, which is that in which case we get to a really interesting argument about what parts of womanhood can be demarcated to the social and what kinds of womanhood can be demarcated to biological. So, for example, my anatomy is demarcated to the biological, but the fact that I might potentially be a better nurturer than a man, I would demarcate that to the social, you might demarcate that to the biological, in which case we have differing moral scales of value. I would ask why we should necessarily prioritize your moral scale of value, which prioritizes things like the birth rate, when in actual fact there are various other moral scales of value. And if you yourself are a free market American, why is it the case that you would not, like the previous speaker noted,
I've already answered,
extend personal freedoms towards all spheres, including a private sphere?
I believe in absolute truth claims, and it's absolutely wrong and bad when a society stops having kids to replace their own population. And then you have to import the third world and you become the third.
Oh my God. And then just like racist drivel at the end. Oh, what's the difference? What is the difference between a person that grew up in the third world as opposed to a person that you called it, by the way, check what his name was before? What do you mean? What was it? Egyptian mummy. Oh my God, he's Egyptian. Again, gay as Get out of here. Get out of here, bro. You're gay as hell. Where is he at now? How is saying third world racist? No, dumbass. Implying that people coming in from the global south into the civilized Western democracy is somehow actually a burden for civilized Western democracies is the racist aspect of it, which is why I said someone should ask Charlie what the problem is when you have people coming in from the third world. Okay? You can use a term created during the Cold War to mark down countries that were non-aligned as a pejorative. Here, like for example, when I use queer as a catch-all umbrella terminology for the entire LGBTQ movement, I'm not using it as a pejorative. But if Charlie Kirk were to say queer or say like queers or whatever, he would be using the same exact term as a pejorative. I don't care about the problematic nature of saying third world, okay? That's not my point. Pick a better struggle here, okay? He literally said, if women in the West don't have kids, we don't have a future. Guess who the we is? Yeah. Third world is not, third world is not inherently a pejorative, even though its application in the Western world oftentimes is a pejorative. It's utilized as a catch-all term for less developed countries that have less developed people. That's what they mean. He's saying 13 words. Yeah. But I'm from Boston, who, when I say queer, it sounds like a slur. Yeah, I'm sorry. You can't say that. You're not allowed. Sorry. You can never say queer. Even if you're gay, you can be the gayest Bostonian out there. And if you say queer, all of a sudden, it just sounds like a slur automatically. You could be in the process of putting a dick in your mouth and still say queer. See? Just sounds, get that queer dick in my mouth. Put it in my mouth. Sounds like you're doing a hate crime. Do you see what I mean? Let me suck your cock, dude. Come on. What are you, queer? Give me that cock, dude. I'm going to suck it. Whip it out. Pack the car and whip out your cock, dude. Let me see your wiener. Yeah, this is my character, Gay Bill Burr.